Howdy, how's your man and them? Welcome back to the channel. Calix Boxing 2.0, calixboxing.com, Calix Boxing 2 over on there on Twitter. And you know how to get at me at this point. Make sure to leave those comments below and hit the like button. Dog days of summer. Boxing schedule ain't too hot. So this is why we get topics like this right now. Believe me, I would love to be talking about fights. But as of right now, we're not getting too many fights. So there's not too many fights to talk about. When I was with Hailstorm Sports a decade ago, Hale and I used to talk about this ad nauseum. I don't understand why the promoters and the networks don't give us more boxing in the dog days of summer when the other sports are down. It feels like this is a good time for boxing to fill that void that needs to be filled for people who enjoy watching sports. And boxing just doesn't give us that. It should be a hedge. Like when the other sports are trending down, boxing should trend up in order to fill that void and try to gain some casual fans. But that's just not happening once again this year. July, August, early September seem to be notoriously slow time for boxing. And because of that, we get topics like this. And make sure as y'all come in, man, hit the like button and leave comments. I want a lot of comments today, and I want a lot of comments on this topic because this is addressed to the fans, and this is a fan channel. This is a boxing fan speaking to boxing fans. This isn't a manager. If I want to hear from a manager, I'll hear from Al Heyman. If I want to hear from a promoter, I'll hear from Bob Arum or Leonard Ellaby. If I want to hear from a network exec, I'll listen to Steven Espinoza. I don't need to go to channels in order for people to be talking to me like they're Steven Espinoza, like they're Bob Arum, like they're Leonard Ellerby, because it leads me to believe that these guys have been propagandized by the promoter manager network exec to speak like a promoter manager network exec. If I want to hear lawyer talk, I'll go to Steven Espinoza because I've been hearing a lot of that from him. When I hear that, we've hit a little bit of a lull, a stumbling block in Crawford versus Spence negotiations, but I'm still optimistic. You know what I hear when I hear something like that? I hear that's lawyer talk for get ready for Spence versus Thurman. That's what I hear when I hear something like that. And when I see Leonard Ellerby out there yesterday quoting numbers, throwing out numbers. Tank did 3 million in this building. Ryan did 1 million live gate. And your default position as a fan should not be to parrot what he's saying. Oscar is telling you something completely different. And what I'm telling you is I don't know which numbers are correct because I know they're both lying to me. I know that. Because like I said, I've been following this sport for a quarter century now, and I know who they are at this point. I know they lie about everything. I know they lie about the stumbling blocks for fights. I know when a market demands a certain fight that the fight should happen. The boxing journalists are failing us as well, and I throw this out there. And this is just stream of thought. I throw this out there because I've been asking for years. Because I hear promoters and managers say stuff like, well, this guy's with this promotional agency. We're over here with Top Rank. They're over there with Golden Boy. So this fight just can't happen. It's not realistic. So I'm over here just asking why? Why? Why can't Top Rank work with Golden Boy to make the fight? The market's demanding the fight, make the fight. Why can't PBC work with Matchroom? Why? Why? And I already know I'm going to have people watching this. Oh, you're stupid. You're just a stupid boxing fan. You're just a stupid boxing fan. It's not realistic. Get realistic. Stop being stupid. Stop asking these questions. You know how it is. Deal with it. Accept it. And I'm over here and I'll continue to ask it. Why? Why can't the fight get made? Since this guy's over here with this guy's over here with this guy, why can't the fight get made? Why? Why is that not realistic? Why is it not realistic to think that since you're with two different promotional companies, two different networks, that guys can't get in the same room and nail it out for the good of the market? And on top of that, I'm told by other boxing fans that I need to do more as a boxing fan in order to get these fights made. And don't doubt me on that. The channels are out there. Look, Leonard Ellerby is out there saying that you're not a manager. You don't know how it is. You're not a promoter. You don't know how it is. Pipe down, boxing fan. Look, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just a boxing fan. I'm not a manager. I'm not a promoter. I don't want to be. I don't want to be. Fair enough. But Leonard, as a boxing fan, my job is to talk about boxing fights, to talk about fights, to talk about matchups. If you're not giving me those, what am I supposed to talk about? What am I supposed to talk about, Leonard? It's your job to deliver the fights, and if you're not doing that, I don't have fights to talk about. So what is keeping me around? I'm being told by other boxing channels that it's the boxing fans' fault, that we're just ignorant as to how it works. I'm being told that if Spence Crawford is to be made, that the fighters need to be paid fairly. They need to be paid fair market value. Fair enough. But here's question number one. How do you, Mr. YouTube channel guy, how do you know what their fair market value price is if you don't know what the numbers are? You're going off of numbers that are thrown out there. Bob Arum is out there saying that Canelo versus Bivol did 250 to 300,000 buys. Eddie Hearn's out there saying it did 600. Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya is out there saying that Tank Davis is doing 50,000 pay-per-view buys, and Leonard's out here saying it's 250. Which are we to believe? Which number am I to believe, Mr. YouTube channel guy? Do you have receipts, Mr. YouTube channel guy? Are you privy to the real numbers? Because if not, and we all know you're not, how do you know what the fair market value price is for Spence and Crawford? How do you know? How do you know if Crawford deserves 20%, 40%, 50%? How do you know? And lastly, why do you care? Why do you care so much? My favorite fighter is only making 25 million in this fight instead of 35 million. What am I to do? What am I to do? Electricity prices up 350%. Gas prices up. Gas bills up. Everything up. Eggs cost like $15 a dozen now. And you're worried about if your favorite fighter is making 25 million or 35 million in a fight. This is where we're at. This is where we're at. If Spence versus Crawford is not made, guess who's to blame? Everybody. That should be your default position. For 4 years, Spence and Crawford have been the two best welterweights in the world, two of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. For 4 years. And for 4 years, I've been told that that fight can't get made because this guy's with this guy and that guy's with that guy. So now, for over 3 months, really over 9 months, Crawford has been a free agent since November 2021. That excuse has gone out the window. Now they're on the both sides of the street. Now this fight is being negotiated by the same outfit. And still, we're being told that this fight may not be realistic. 4 years. 4 years. For 6 years, the two top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, it took them 6 years to get in the ring with each other. 6 years. And now we're going on 4 years, and still We haven't figured out a way to get Spence and Crawford in the ring with each other. So you know what my default position is at this point? It's everybody's fault. It's everybody's fault. Because I don't have the receipts in order to even blame anybody. So I'm just going to blame everybody. What a colossal failure this will be if this fight does not happen next. If they come out here and tell you that Spence versus Thurman is happening for the WBC next, what a colossal failure. And the saddest part about this is you will have channels on here. You will have boxing Twitter accounts out there telling you it's Bud Crawford's fault. You will have accounts blaming the other side as well. And nobody knows a thing. I don't know what the real numbers are. You don't know what the real numbers are. Nobody knows what the real numbers are. But yet you're going to be assigning blame to this guy and that guy. And what I'm telling you is it's the whole system is broken. You have the two top guys in the division for 4 years. For 4 years. And they still haven't found a way to stumble into the same ring with each other. What a colossal failure. And you'll have people try to explain that away. But what I'm telling you is everybody is to blame at that point. I don't care. Steven Espinoza, you're to blame. Al Heyman, you're to blame. Bud, blame you. Errol, blame you. All of them. Because what that means is when you have a market dictating that two fighters get in the ring with each other, you got to find a way to get that fight done. I don't care what the stumbling blocks are. You get in that boardroom and you get the fight done. And these channels present us with the false dilemma, right? Because I see the polls out there. And I'm sure you see them too. And I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to do that here. But I'm sure you see them. I'm sure you know the people I'm talking about. They create this false dilemma in which if the fight isn't getting made, it's because the fighters aren't being treated fairly. And the fighters aren't being treated fairly, partially to blame, partially the blame is on the fans because we're just not paying enough. We're not doing our fair share. So they're creating this false dilemma in which if Spence and Crawford don't get in the ring with each other, we're to blame as well. The issue with that is the market dictates what these guys are worth. And like I said, I don't know what the price is because we're not privy to the numbers. All these guys are lying. But everybody in that room knows the numbers. They all know the numbers. So if the fight's not being made, that means somebody in that room is being greedy. Somebody in that room isn't budging. And my guess is it's a little bit with all of them. This side's not budging. That side's not budging. They're all being bullheaded. We're not going to get the fight. And it's not our fault. It's not our fault, Mr. YouTube channel guy who doesn't have the numbers. It's not our fault. Because the market dictated what each guy is worth, and everybody in that room knows what each guy is worth. Everybody in that room knows the real market value for that fight. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows the numbers that need to be worked out in that room. We've done our part. We bought the apps. We bought the pay-per-views. We've done our part. It's up for them at that point to deliver the fight to us. If a product is in the grocery store and it's sitting on the shelf, 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 and it sits on the shelf for months, nobody touches it, it collects dust, what happens? According to Mr. YouTube channel guy, the price of the product should go up. But in the real world, where common sense rules supreme, guess what happens in that case? That product gets a yellow sticker on it. It goes on the clearance rack. It drops in price. That's the only way it's finding its way out of the store. Somebody in that boardroom being greedy. And my guess is it's everybody. My guess is it's everybody. But I can tell you whose fault it is not. It's not mine. It's not yours in the chat. So any channel that is telling you that you're part of the blame, because we need to do more. Fighters need to be paid better. Fighters need to be treated better. Dude, these dudes are fighting once a year. There's a lot of reasons that these dudes cap on here. Remember the Bronx Tale? When Colosal walks into the diner and Sonny's telling, like, Colosalo's like, why? Sonny's like, why are you sad? Colosalo's like, the Yankees lost. Mickey Mantle was crying. And Sonny's like, that's what you're worried about? Mickey Mantle makes $60,000 a year. Go ask Mickey Mantle what your dad makes. Go ask Mickey Mantle if your dad can put food on the table. Mickey Mantle's not going to care. He's not going to care. Mickey Mantle doesn't care about you. Why should you care about Mickey Mantle? There's too much fanaging going on. Too many fanagers. Why should you care if Errol Spence gets a 60% split, 70% split, 80% split? Why do you care? Your default position as a boxing fan is, I don't care what the numbers are. Get in the boardroom and get the fight done. Get the fight done. Get the fight on my TV. Get the damn fight on my TV. You're already going to charge me $80 for it. Like I said, my electricity bill's up 350%. I still got to pay $80 for the damn fight. Inflation always finds its way down to the consumer. So when I'm pricing Canelo versus Golovkin tickets, guess what I'm seeing? $650 to get in the building. $1,000 2 nights for a hotel room. $800 for round trip flights. You think the manager and promoter is like, hey, this guy's electricity bill's up 350%. Maybe we should cut him a little bit of slack here. No, that's not what they're doing. They're saying fuel is up. Guess what? We're going to hit the consumer with that. So I'm supposed to care if the fighter gets 25 million or 26 million or 27 million? No, I don't. I'm sorry. If that makes me anti-fighter, so be it. So be it. I see a lot of disturbing stuff on here when it comes to these channels. 30, 40-year-old dudes fanboying out over dudes in their 20s. It's weird. It's weirdo behavior. And these dudes will always let you down if that's the case. Your favorite quarterback looks like a nice guy on TV doing charitable donations. You bump into him in the elevator, asking for an autograph, he blows you off. They'll always let you down in some kind of way. You should not be fanboying out over them. Your favorite rapper is a trap star. Look at T.I. Trap back bumping, get ish back popping. Then you see he's got a new movie out, ATL. You think it's going to be a gangbang flick. You go there with your boys, you're depressed to find out halfway into the movie it's a movie about roller skating. Your favorite rapper who has marketed himself as a gangster is in a roller rink doing choreographed dances with his friends. They'll always let you down in some kind of way. It's not good to be fanboying out about these people. It's not. Worry about putting food on your table. Worry about supporting your family. And then look for these guys for entertainment. This is our escape from the real world. But what you should not be doing is worrying about if these dudes are getting a 55% split, 60% split. And you should not be beating yourself up for sure if these fights are getting made, because you're the last one to blame, especially if you're buying the apps like I do. I got ESPN, plus I got the Zone. I paid for every single pay-per-view. I mean, I'm doing my part. I'm showing up. I'm still here. I'm on YouTube talking about boxing. I'm doing my part. And I got dudes telling me that fighters who we're lucky if they show up once a year, that we need to do more for them. And what I'm telling you is everybody in that boardroom, everybody in the negotiation room knows the real numbers. The market has dictated what the real numbers are. We're not being unrealistic. The people in that boardroom are being unrealistic because the numbers aren't working because one or all of them are being unrealistic. Them, not us. Chicano Profit in the building. Let me get to, I'm way behind on these comments. Garcia this weekend at 154, Tio at 140. Both interesting to see in a new division. That's right. And these should be easy fights for both of them. These should be easy fights for both of them. And it's what happens after that that's interesting. And I think Teofimo has a better chance of translating at 140 than Danny Garcia has at 154. You can argue that Teofimo hasn't even entered his prime yet. I think he's there, though. And I think he'll translate better to 140. I'm not so sure. I'm not writing Teofimo off yet. That fight with Kambosos could be a one-off. It could be a one-off. I didn't see that Teofimo before that fight. That could be a one-off. I tend to think that the real Teofimo is more what we saw in the Lomachenko fight than what we saw in the Kambosos fight. So we'll see. We'll see. It all depends on up here, right? It all depends on up here with him. We know the talent's there. We know the talent is there. Anna Lee, appreciate the support. Spence versus Thurman. Spence versus Thurman. And let me throw this out there, and I'm not talking about Boxing 112 in this because I don't know much about Boxing 112, but I can tell you from observing people on here and observing people on Boxing Twitter that there are a lot of people who don't want that Spence versus Crawford fight to happen, and don't doubt me on that. Don't doubt me on that. And I learned that from Mayweather versus Pacquiao for 6 years, being on here and being on Twitter at that time. They'd rather almost the fight not happen, the super fans, because they can always claim that mythically Pacquiao would have beaten Mayweather. Mythically, Mayweather would have beaten Pacquiao. They don't have to fight. They can always argue that their fighter would have won the fight and the other side is scared. So I guarantee you that a lot of Spence super fans that are worried what would happen once we get to fight night if that fight is signed. There are a lot of Crawford super fans who are worried about what would happen that night if it got to that fight and he had to fight Spence. On both sides, there's a lot of, on the extremes, there's a lot of concern about what would happen if one guy lost to the other. There's a lot of concern. And this is what I go back to when with the super fanhood thing. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. You shouldn't have that much invested into a fighter. Shouldn't. Thurman shouldn't take any less than 30%. The answer as to why they want to keep most of the money in-house, and if their guy loses, they think it takes a hit to their future revenue. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I get that. I get it. But don't tell me it's unrealistic for them to talk to the other guy, because what this is programming. It's programming. They're programming you to think like them. And I see it way too often. I see boxing fans, Leonard Ellerby will come on there yesterday on Twitter and say, we're worth 3 times what Ryan Garcia is worth because of these numbers. And then you'll have people on Twitter and YouTube just go out there and parrot that. They haven't vetted the information. There's no way to vet it because it's not going to be transparent. There's no real receipts that we're privy to. And they're going to go out there and parrot it. And this is how this propagandizing happens. It's a brainwashing. It's a brainwashing tactic. They brainwash you into thinking these fights are unrealistic, that this guy can't work with this guy because they're on 2 separate sides of the streets. Bullcrap. They're both in the same sport. And they're both in the same division. Make the damn fight. That should be our default position. Make the fight. But this guy's with like, no. You have me, once again, you have me confused with somebody who cares. Once again, you have me confused with somebody who cares about the inner workings of Bob Arum's enterprise. I don't care about the inner workings of Leonard's enterprise. I don't care. Leonard is correct in saying that. Leonard's out there telling people stupidly on Twitter yesterday that, are you a promoter? Are you a manager? No, Leonard, I'm not. What I'm telling you is to do your job. What I'm telling you is you aren't giving the market the fights that are being dictated, that you should make. If you did, if you were making these fights, quite possibly Tank would be an even bigger star than he is now. Quite possibly. Just throwing that out there. I saw a super chat. Got a ton of comments. I'm sorry, I'm behind with those. Chauncey Pearl's in the building. Y'all enjoy the fights tomorrow. I think it's going to be more entertaining than what people are making it out to be. Hope I'm right. And you could be. You could be, because you have two stationary fighters and you have two fighters who have been inactive. That's the two commonalities between Garcia and Benavidez Jr. Benavidez has not been the same fighter since he was shot in the right leg in 2016. Been a more stationary, immobile fighter since then. I think he's only fought once in the past 4 years. Garcia only fought once in 2020, didn't fight in 2021. We're almost into month 8 in 2022, and he's finally fighting. So he's been on an almost 2-year layoff. So that's common with Benavidez Jr. The reason that I think Garcia will prevail is because I think at 154, the type of guy that's going to give Garcia issues is not only a guy with good chin and more power, but a guy who has some sort of lateral movement, because all Danny Garcia has is staying in the pocket, landing big left hooks. He's going to be fighting naturally taller guys, naturally bigger guys. It's going to be tougher for him to get on the inside. But I don't think Benavidez Jr. is that guy, and there's a reason that they handpicked Benavidez Jr. and Danny Garcia's move up. Al Haymon does not want Danny Garcia to lose. So quite likely, more than likely, much more than likely, Danny Garcia is not going to lose. This is a fight that's Danny Garcia is supposed to look great in, and the odds tell you that. Minus 800 favorite. Kaunaki going to get smoked, and Kaunaki is the underdog as well. People are acting like Kaunaki is the favorite, and it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to win. He's the underdog. He's the underdog in that fight. I'm liking that whole card tomorrow. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not sure what that has to do with. Lenny goes all the way. Are you a promoter? He always says that. PBC even tried blocking Plant Canelo. Yeah, they did. Canelo graciously came back to the table. Graciously came back to the table. If a fight falls through and PBC's involved, nearly every time it turns out it was the PBC side. Well, in this case, PBC is the only outfit involved. So we know where to point the blame to as far as the promotional side if Crawford versus Spence isn't done. We know that. We know that. But look at how they moved the goalposts. Shout out Westside. What's good? Salute, champ. And I'm sorry if I'm lacking on the comments here. I just got in a stream of thought. If you look at the welterweight rankings 15 years ago to the day, and I can read them out to you right now. Mayweather, number 1. Mosley, number 2. Undefeated Cotto, number 3. Undefeated Paul Williams, number 4. Margarito, 5. Oscar De La Hoya, 6. Kermit Cintron, 7. Josh Cloudy, 8. Zab Judah, 9. Carlos Quintana, number 10. Pacquiao was still at 130 training for the Barrera fight. Just think about that. Just think about that. Pacquiao's still at 130. And he's still got 3 more fights before he even moves to welterweight. And then he ends up fighting most of the guys on that list. But a lot of these guys ended up fighting each other. This wasn't the welterweight division at the time. This is a stacked division in which it took some fights too long to develop, but they ended up developing. You fast forward to the welterweight division. When Mayweather was at the top, Pacquiao came into the division. There was a stalemate at 1 and 2. It became a different culture at welterweight when that was the case. Pacquiao enters the division. All of a sudden, Mayweather's worried about drug testing. It takes 6 years to get the fight. Crawford moves into the division. Spence is at the top. All of a sudden, the same excuse comes up. This guy's with this promotional outfit. That guy's with that promotional outfit. This guy's with that network. This guy's with this network. Can't make the fight. Can't make the fight. And the whole time I'm asking why? Why can't we make the fight? I'm stupid. Like, I'm just sitting over here stupid. Why can't we make the fight? Because you don't understand. This guy's with that guy and this guy's with that guy. So it can't happen. They're both boxers, correct? Yes, they're both boxers. But you don't understand. This guy's over here. This guy's over there. They're on two different sides of the street. Yeah, but they're both in the same sport, correct? Correct. And they're both in the same division, correct? Correct. And I'm just sitting over here baffled. Just baffled. This is how you're telling me that the sport should work. No, I'm not telling you this is how the sport should work, but this is how it works. Oh, so I'm just supposed to accept this, is what you're telling me. Yeah, you need to be realistic. You need to accept that this is the way it is. No. How about that? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So make the fight. Make the fight. And to me, that's how every boxing fan should think. And I hate to sound like a broken record here, but I think it's important. And in the dog days of summer, I think there's no more important topic to talk about, because we've talked about promoters and who they are, managers and who they are, sanctioning bodies and who they are, the network suits, who they are. We all know who those guys are. Everybody does videos about that. Everybody does videos about the drug testing. Everybody does videos about the sanctioning bodies. We get it. We get it. But one thing that hasn't had a light shined on it is how, since I've been on here and I've seen it, I've seen the propaganda take hold. How we're getting more fanagers. And I don't see this in other sports. I just don't. I don't see dudes out there in basketball, NBA fans saying, yes, Giannis won the championship, but Kevin Durant made more money. He's the face of basketball. If a basketball fan tells another basketball fan that, the other basketball fan is going to look at him like, what did you just say? What? Well, what I'm saying is, yeah, Giannis won, but he only made 28 mil and Kevin Durant made 35 mil. Kevin Durant sold more jerseys. So he's the real champ. And then they're going to start looking at him like, who is this dude? What is this? And that's how people look at us. Hold on one second. No, I'm good. They look at it like they see somebody out there saying, hold on one second. I do have to get one. Hold on. That was my kids and the babysitter. My bad. I'm back. What I'm saying is, you'll have boxing fans tell you that this guy is the champion. Yes, this guy has all the belts. And historically, that's what matters. But this guy made more. This guy is the face of boxing, even though we don't know if he's the face of boxing. Although we know he's not the face of boxing. We know Tank's not the face of boxing. That's an easy one to sniff out. That's an easy one to sniff out. But Leonard's out there yesterday telling you that Tank is the face of boxing, and that's an easy one to refute. Easy. We don't need receipts to refute that one. And this is how they brainwash boxing fans to speak. You're worried about the wrong numbers. I'm worried about the win column and the loss column and the draw column. You're worried about commas. How many commas your favorite fighter is generating. And what I'm telling you is, I don't think people used to worry about that. I don't think boxing fans used to worry about that. Not the way they do now. It's weird. It's weirdo behavior. Like I said, it's Sonny and C in the diner in the Bronx Tale. Sonny's looking at C and he's like, you need to change how you think. That's not normal behavior. That's not normal behavior. You need to grow out of that. And a lot of these dudes need to grow out of the Fanager behavior, because it's weirdo behavior. It's not grown man behavior. I just talked about the welterweight rankings. I'm gonna throw out some stats to you. Wilfred Benitez, youngest world champion at 17 years old. Down here in New Orleans in 1893, Andy Bowen versus Jack Burke. They fought 110 rounds. You know how they dictated how a round ended back then? You know, it wasn't 3-minute rounds with a 1-minute break. It's not how it worked. When a guy was knocked down, the round ended. He had a certain amount of time to get back up. If he got back up in that certain amount of time, they started another round. They did this 110 times over a 7.5-hour period. Both fighters broke both hands. Both fighters lost 10 pounds of water weight in that 7.5 hours. This is our roots. This is where we come from as a boxing world. These are the roots that this sport was built on. Ali was undisputed champion 3 times. Liston, Foreman, Spinks. He fought them all. He fought everybody. A quarter of the planet, 25% of the planet watched Ali versus Foreman. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. A quarter of the planet. And this is when TV sets weren't, you didn't have flat screens on the wall in every room. You had to go out of your way to get in front of a TV set. A quarter of the planet watched Ali versus Foreman. These dudes were titans of the sport. And they earned their way there. They earned their way there by fighting top competition in hard work and endearing themselves to the public. They built a relationship with the public. How many fighters today are building an organic relationship with the public? That's been taken away. It's been taken away. Promoters are taking the highest site fee. Managers aren't doing their job. Promoters, once they get the site fee money, they're not promoting these fighters properly. They're not putting the fights where they belong. Fighters aren't demanding fights from their promoters and managers. Fighters aren't demanding that they're fighting enough in order to build an organic relationship with their fan base, to build a larger fan base, both domestically and universally. A quarter of the planet watched Ali versus Foreman. This is where we came from. This is what this sport has been built upon. And all of those fighters were being underpaid. All of them. Every single one of them. Joe Louis had his title for 13 years and 3 months, defended his title 25 straight fights. 25 straight fights. This wasn't, oh, let me take a rematch clause over here. Let me give this guy step-aside money. Every single guy that they put in front of him, he fought 25 straight times, defended it. And that's with them taking away part of his prime due to the draft. Then they go after his money, the IRS. These guys had real obstacles in their way. These guys had real demons coming after them. These guys were really underpaid, and these guys had real obstacles in their way. Henry Armstrong won the undisputed championship at featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight at the same damn time. At the same damn time, simultaneously. Featherweight, lightweight, welterweight. Simultaneously. I think I saw something. He defended his title at welterweight 19 straight times. We're in an era where guys don't even want championships. Leonard saying championships don't matter anymore. B-Hop's out there agreeing with him. Ryan Garcia saying he doesn't care about the belts. Nobody wants to take responsibility. Nobody wants to put a target on their back. Lynn Wickwer fought 467 times. Willie Pep had 2 60-plus consecutive win streaks. 2 of them. So that means he won over 60 fights in a row, lost the fight, then won over 60 times in a row after that. This is what this sport was built on. And all of those guys were underpaid. And we evolved out of that and said, you know what? We can't be fans at the Coliseum yelling off with their head to the gladiators down there competing. We can't be that way. We have to evolve out of that, and we did. But what I'm saying is, if there's a word for it, we over-evolved out of that. Now, fans aren't getting enough, not nearly enough. So when I see channels out there saying fans aren't doing enough, it irks me. It irks me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're doing more than enough. We're doing more than our fair share. Way more. And the fighters at this point, most of them, I brought up a week ago. You take the top 50 pound for pound in BoxRec, they're fighting an average of once every 10 months. And even that's flawed. It's even worse than that, because the inactive fighters in the top 50 pound for pound, you have guys like a Gallo Estrada, who is a top 50 best fighter in the world, who hasn't fought in over that amount of time, but he's not ranked in the top 50 because he's considered inactive. So it's actually worse. If you consider guys like that, it's likely once every 12 to 13 months that these guys are fighting on average. And when I'm buying everything under the sun, when I'm paying $70 and it's about to go up to $100 for ESPN Plus, the DAZN app just went up. DAZN's charging pay-per-views now, PBC's pay-per-view after pay-per-view, and I'm paying for all of them. And then you're going to blame me for Spence and Crawford not getting made? Nope. Nope. When Leonard's out there whining about whatever the split should be for Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, and then I see people parroting that, I see them setting up alibis. That's what I see. The fight's going to get made. They're trying to build up alibis. I thought, I'm stupid. Once again, I'm naive. I thought that Errol Spence Jr. going on Showtime for fights 3 times to give interviews, 3 separate fights, and talking about how he thinks the fight's going to get made before the end of the year. I'm actually optimistic at that point. I'm thinking he's out there saying it, so it's going to happen. But in reality, what's likely happening is PBC's telling him to be out there, be on the forefront, say you want the fight, just in case the fight falls through, we can blame Terrence Crawford. I know how to read between the lines at this point. I've been around here 20, 25 years. I know who they are at this point. I know that when Keith Thurman gets elevated to #1 at the WBC, that's not an accident. It's not an accident. The timing of it is not an accident. Like Marlon Brando in The First Godfather, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in them. There's a reason Keith Thurman gets elevated to #1 in the WBC. There is a reason it happened. It tells me that they're having issues in the negotiation room. And your default position, if the fight falls through, is you're to blame, you're to blame, you're to blame, you're to blame, you're to blame. Every single person who went into that room is to blame. None of us know the market value of these fighters. None of us are privy to the numbers. None of us know what the real numbers are. None of us know what Spence's cut of the money should be. None of us know what Crawford's cut of the money should be. None of us know. None of us know. We'll never know the numbers. Only God and the people in those in that negotiation room know what the real numbers are. And they all know the real numbers is the point. They all know it. They all know what the real market value of this fight is. And they go in there knowing those numbers. And if the fight can't get made, a fight that the whole world wants to see, it's because somebody or everybody in that room was greedy. That's it. That's it. And I'm blaming everybody. What a colossal failure it should be. What a colossal failure it would be, and everybody should be raked over the coals if this fight is not made Next. Yes, Haplo. Thurman fought once in the past 3 years. Once. And these jokers still have him ranked 5, 6, 7 in the welterweight rankings. And these jokers at the WBC elevate him to number 1. He just failed to knock out a guy who a lightweight knocked out right before him. And he's a welterweight. And his nickname is One Time. Your nickname is One Time because you knock people out with one punch, yet you failed to knock out a guy that a lightweight knocked out before you. And this is the guy you rank 5, 6, 7 in the division. This is the guy the WBC promotes the number 1 in the division. And this is what I'm talking about, man. Promoters, managers, networks, sanctioning bodies. It's all corrupt. And we need to be educated enough to call them out on it. And what we don't need to do for sure is creating alibis for them. What we don't need to be doing is cutting them some slack if the biggest pure fight in boxing is not made. Some of the biggest pure fights in boxing. 4 years, these two guys have been at the top of the welterweight rankings in the pound-for-pound list. 4 years, I'm told. Different sides of the street, can't happen. Now they're in the same side of the street, still can't happen. Bivol beats Canelo. Better Beav runs through Joe Smith Jr. They have all the belts at 175. And I'm like, okay, I'm naive enough to think, oh, we're about to get down dispute at 175. Wait. Bob Arum's coming around. No, we're going to fight Yard. We're going to fight Yard. I'm sitting over here like, what? We're going to do what? What are we going to do? Wait, what is this? What are we going to do? We're going to fight Yard. Where the hell this? We're going to fight Yard? No, wait. You don't understand. Like, these two guys have all the belts in the division. Like, we can just go straight to that. No, you don't understand how things work. That's not how we do it here. That's not how we do it here. That's not how we're going to do it. What do you mean that's not how we're going to do it? It's a sport, right? Like, we know these are the two top guys in the weight class. This is a sport. They're supposed, the two, number 1 and number 2 supposed to compete against each other. No, that's not how it's a business. It's not a sport, it's a business. I'm sitting over here like, what? Why can't we just put Bivol and Better Beav in there with each other? No, we're not going to do that. And I got fans telling me, no, we can't do that. We can't do it. They're right. We can't do it. It's not realistic. Why is it not realistic? It's just not. It's just not. Don't worry about it. It's just not realistic. But why? It's just not. Stop asking questions. It's just not realistic. So then Better Beav's going to go fight Yard. Bivol is going to fight Zerto, right? But then Eddie comes along. No, we're not going to do that either. Wait, what? What do you mean we're not going to do that? No, we're going to do Buatsi. We're going to do Bivol versus Buatsi. Wait, what? We're going to do what? Yeah, we're going to do Bivol versus Buatsi. So then we're not, but luckily it looks like that's not going to happen. We're going to get Bivol versus Zerto. But after we get Bivol versus Zerto, we're going to get Bivol versus Buatsi. And I'm like, okay. It would have been nice to go straight to Better Beav versus Bivol, but okay. And then after that, we got to give Canelo his rematch. So then I'm like, okay, the fight that should have been one fight away, it should be a gentleman's agreement that when two guys have all the belts in the division, all the real belts, that they fight each other. So instead of that fight being one fight away, now it's 4 fights away. 4 fights away. A fight that should have, like a book that should have ended in the next chapter now has 4 more chapters. And I'm reading this book like too long. They should have just got to the end. Too long. Now there might not even be an end to this because they let it over marinate. Too long. Should have been one fight away. Should have happened in October, November. Now, 2024 maybe? Possibly. It'll probably get ruined before then. And I'm not saying that I'm against Bivol versus Zerto, Buatsi, Canelo rematch, but It sure would have been nice to get a champion. It sure would have been nice to get one of the best pure fights in boxing for all the marbles. Bivol versus Better Be. That would have been nicer. I can't get it. I can't get it because it's not realistic. And I can't ask why it's not realistic. I just can't ask it. I can't ask it. That makes me a bad fan. They literally could have just given us Bivol versus Better Be. They literally could have given us Crawford versus Spence 4 years ago. Like, you realize that, right? I'm looking at everybody in the chat and the camera. You realize that we could have had Crawford versus Spence 4 years ago. You realize that, right? And we could have gotten it again 3 years ago. And we could have gotten it again 2 years ago. You realize that, right? Like, put in the chat, yes. If you understand what I'm saying, put in the chat, yes, I understand. Or thumbs up, whatever you want to do. Boxing glove. Please tell me you understand this. We could have gotten Spence versus Crawford 4 years ago. We could have gotten a trilogy by now. Like, this picture should have developed out of, like, we're still on Crawford versus Spence in 2022. This should have been a done deal 2018. And we're 2022. We're still dealing with this. This should have been dealt with. And we should already be on Crawford versus Spence. If they want to stick around, they can fight the Young Lions, or they can move on to 154 and go into another division, possibly 160. We should be moved on to that already when it comes to Crawford versus Spence. And we should be talking about Boots versus Virgil right now. We should be talking about Ben versus Stanionis or Ben versus Virgil. We should be talking about these fights at the top of 147 now. Or we should be talking about the undisputed champion, whether it be Crawford or Spence, defending against all young and up-and-comers in the division multiple times by now. This is what we should be talking about, but they moved the goalpost without us even noticing. I just threw out some of the history behind the sport and what this sport is built on. This is what we came from. And it's devolved into what it is now, to where they programmed us into making arguments for them as to why fights shouldn't happen and why they didn't happen and why they're not realistic. It was realistic for Crawford versus Spence to happen 4 damn years ago. And Haplo's right in the chat, and I appreciate everybody saying yes. Wilder and Fury did it as well. We should have had a heavyweight undisputed champion 4 or 5 times over by now. We should have had Fury versus Joshua multiple times by now. We've devolved. They've ran a propaganda campaign against us, and we didn't even know it. We didn't even know it. They moved the goalpost so far, and then you look back one day and you're like, you don't even notice where the goalpost should have been. That's how great this marketing campaign, this scam that they've run against us is, that we didn't even know they were running it on us. And anybody who pushes against it is seen as anti-fighter. So when you see these polls out there from the channels that should Spence and Crawford be paid their fair market value for this fight, they're setting up a false dilemma. And they're trying to blame you for it. And anybody who does that, they have an agenda. Either they've been brainwashed beyond recognition or they have an agenda. So when you see these polls, I don't know, you can ignore it or you can put something in the comment, like put up your middle finger in the comment section or something. I don't know. But these are fanagers. And these are the people we need to declare war on. And these are the people we need to try to get to at least. It's horrible. Horrible. We need to get better. We need to get better. But this has been the State of the Union Fanager edition. A lot more of this. And I'll be back tomorrow night for the Garcia fight. I will be on here tomorrow night during the Garcia fight, talking everything boxing and live Garcia thoughts as well. Y'all be good, man. Appreciate y'all